At this time, we're going to go back to committee referrals. If I could ask the center aisle if you could please clear. If we could ask colleagues in the center aisle if you could please clear. Thank you. I'd like to recognize our Assistant Majority Leader, Ms. Cristina Garcia.
I request unanimous consent to correct the April 29, 2015 report by the Housing and Community Development Committee and report AB 806 DOD as due pass and refer to the Appropriations Committee with the recommendation of the consent calendar.
Without objection, the clerk will note.
I request unanimous consent to correct the April 29, 2015 report by the Housing and Community Development Committee and report AB 1403 Manshine as due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Local Government with the recommendation to the consent calendar.
And without objection, the clerk will note. Colleagues, let's now go to business on the daily file. The second reading, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 864, 1232, 339 with amendments, 464, 590 with amendments, 1132 with amendments, 1266 with amendments, 563 with amendments, 975 with amendments, 496 with amendments, 943 with amendments, 1204 with amendments, 1405 with amendments, 515 with amendments, 571 with amendments, 582 with amendments, 1157 with amendments, 514 with amendments, 656 with amendments, 575 with amendments, 827 with amendments, 854 with amendments, 1014 with amendments, 1240 with amendments, 184 with amendments, 419 with amendments, 1125 with amendments, 1286 with amendments, 1369 with amendments, 443 with amendments, 849 with amendments, 1051 with amendments, 1140 with amendments, 954 with amendments, 965 with amendments, 178 with amendments, 623 with amendments, 808 with amendments, 1092 with amendments, 525 with amendments, 287 with amendments, 431 with amendments, 83, 69 with amendments, and 73 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Let's go now to the Assembly third reading. Colleagues, for file item 46, we're going to pass and retain. File item 47, AB 277. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 277 by Assembly Member Roger Hernandez, an act relating to elections.
Mr. Hernandez, you may present.
Mr. Speaker and members, Assembly Bill 277 amends the definition of political subdivision to include charter cities, charter counties. This bill reflects the recent Second Appellate Court decision in Hadagi versus Palmdale 2014. The bill codifies the Palmdale decision and clarifies that all voters in California have the same fundamental rights and protections. The Palmdale decision determined that integrity in the municipal electoral process is a matter of statewide concern, ensuring that a city will be able to conduct elections that are inclusive of all that municipality citizenry is priority to maintain a healthy representative democracy at the municipal level. The California Voting Rights Act has proven to be an effective tool for residents to change discriminatory voting practices. This bill does not interfere with local control. Assembly Bill 277 empowers local residents to protect their rights and gives them another tool to engage with their local city governance. There is no opposition to this bill, and that's why I proudly ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, I rise in support of AB 277 and came through the Elections Committee, one of our earliest bills. It's a common sense bill. It increases inclusion in the electoral process. This is what we hope to see. A part of the challenges that we see with voter turnout is because municipalities and counties have from time to time made the access to the ballot box or inclusionary election practices much, much harder. So this bill helps advance that. That's why it got out with strong support, and we urge your support today. We thank the gentleman from the San Gabriel Valley for bringing this important measure forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Kim, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to AB 277. This bill would hurt our cities, certainly the ones I represent. The city of Fullerton, for example, faces 2 lawsuits over CVRA. In one of those lawsuits, attorneys convinced the plaintiff to move into the city for the sole purpose of filing the lawsuits. The only ones who will benefit from this litigation are the attorneys who will profit from these abusive shakedowns. So I ask you, AB 277 does nothing but damage our relations in our communities. I ask you to vote no on AB 277.
Mr. Lackey, you're recognized.
Yes, I rise respectfully at this time to advise this body that this legislation takes away local control and it provides a false sense of motivation that's unfair to our cities, because local government understands their community, and I would urge a no vote on this particular measure.
Mr. Harper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill because the rights of charter cities are being chipped away one by one, whether it was prevailing wage or now the ability to be able to conduct elections on their own terms. This is just shameful action.
Mr. Williams.
Members, I represent a community, Santa Barbara City, that is over 40% Latino, 45% non-white, and for over 40 years, the city council only had 2 council members of Latino extraction. And that's what happens in cities with at-large elections. I applaud the author for this bill. It is a needed effort. At-large elections consistently disenfranchise minorities. And I'll add that in some cities, those minorities that are disenfranchised by at-large elections includes the minority of Republicans. So it is not just racial minorities that district elections helps protect.
Assemblymember Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise just to respond to some of the arguments against this measure, because I think some of my colleagues are arguing against the very system in which we get elected at. Each of us have district elections, so it ensures that every part of California represents the same amount of people in every corner of the state. If we had at-large, maybe many of us wouldn't be here today. Many of us would probably come out of Los Angeles or the Bay Area. But district elections got many of us, some of the same people who are arguing against this bill, got us here to Sacramento. The California Voting Rights Act mirrors the federal statute. And this year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the landmark civil rights piece of legislation. That's what we're honoring here. We make the state version of that. And to hear people argue against landmark civil rights piece of legislation in our state, I think it's unfounded and unmerited. This statute was actually authored by Senator Polanco back in 2001, and since its enactment, it's helped cities have a more equitable, more diverse representation on local city councils and boards of supervisors, on water districts, on school boards, and again, guaranteeing that each part of a community is represented. The landmark case that challenged at-large elections in the federal court was Gomez versus City of Watsonville, because at one point in my city, my hometown, we had 3 council members living in the same neighborhood, but yet the poor, the more disenfranchised part of the city had no representation. Nobody who went back at home and had to see the condition of the streets, the street lights, had no parks. Those were the realities at that time, and that's why this measure is important, and we should be furthering its goals and its effectiveness by passing this measure today.
Mr. Cooper, you're recognized.
My colleagues, I too rise in support of AB 277. Many cities have minority majorities that aren't fairly represented. And at large elections, they favor the incumbents. We've seen that many, many times again, and it's something to think about. Everyone should have a voice. Everyone should be represented. So I please ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Assemblymember Hernandez, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to clarify the point here. We all have risen our hand in defense of our Constitution. The Second Appellate Court decision says just that whether you live in a city or you live in a charter city, the protections of the Constitution, the benefits and purview of the Voting Rights Act, they're available to you too. That's what the Appellate Court decision says, and this is what this bill seeks to do, is to put it in statute. That's it. If we stand for our Constitution, we will stand to make sure that every citizen is afforded these protections, civil liberties, and all the amendments that come with our Constitution. So with that, I ask for a aye vote. I do want to mention one thing. Not one charter city is opposing this piece of legislation. Not one city is opposing this piece of legislation. I ask for an aye vote.
At this time, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 50, noes 24. Measure passes. Colleagues, file items 48 through 50 we will pass and retain. File item 51, AB 675. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 675 by Assemblymember Alejo, an act relating to rental vehicles.
Assemblymember Alejo, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today, I'm presenting AB 675, which updates and modernizes the statute governing agreements between rental car companies and their customers. First, it increases transparency in rental car pricing by allowing rental car companies to fully disclose to consumers all public taxes and fees levied beyond those already permitted. This provision of the bill will not change any consumer safeguards, including the requirement that a rental car company give the customer a total price upon purchase. This provision will only allow for additional fees to be listed and identified for the customer's benefit. Second, the bill will allow rental car companies to quickly retrieve stolen vehicles via its existing geolocation services, because currently the rental company must wait 7 days after a car is due back before turning on the GPS tracker. Many times the vehicle is beyond recovery at this point, so this bill will move the timeline up to 3 days, allowing for speedy recovery of stolen vehicles. And finally, in addition to other technical changes, the bill will update the decades-old statute to reflect technological advances by allowing for damage waivers to be posted online. This bill received unanimous bipartisan support in the Assembly Judiciary Committee and has no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Assemblymember Alejo, I'll take that as your close. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Aye 75, no 0. The measure passes. We will pass and retain file items 52 and 53. File item 54 for purposes of amendments. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 256 with amendments by Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer.
Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer, you may open on your amendments.
Mr. Speaker and members, I rise today for purposes of amendments to AB 256. Currently, it is a felony for a peace officer to knowingly alter, place, or move physical matter with the specific intent to wrongfully charge any person for a crime. AB 256 ensures the law will not be misinterpreted by specifically clarifying that any physical matter, including digital images and video recordings. I am taking these amendments today to address the concern that this measure should include non-sworn law enforcement personnel as well as sworn personnel. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Assemblymember Waldron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for clarification, Republicans are supporting the amendments.
Okay. Seeing and hearing no further debate, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, at this time we can take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File items 55 through 57 we will pass and retain. And file item 58 for purposes of amendments. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1129 with amendments by Assemblymember Burke.
Assemblymember Burke, you may open on your amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The amendments before you today address the concerns of the EMS Administrators Association and are technical and clarifying in nature. With the amendments, the bill will strike the right balance of flexibility both for the local EMS agencies and providers when it comes to data collection. I respectfully request an aye vote on the amendments and that the bill be sent out to print and placed back on the file.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, I will assume from Member Burke that is her close. We can take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File items 59 through 64 we will pass and retain. File item 65, AB 1352. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1352 by Assemblymember Eggman, an act relating to deferred entry of judgment.
Assemblymember Eggman, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, today I rise to present AB 1352, a bill that provides an opportunity to all of us to rectify an injustice and protect the intent of the law while making a relatively small change. The California court system offers to those accused of minor drug possession crimes the chance to avoid incarceration by pleading guilty or no contest and then completing a drug treatment program. This is called deferred entry of judgment. The state of California has made it clear in the law that once a person has completed the treatment program, their conviction effectively goes away. Current law prohibits that record from being used in such a way that could result in the denial of employment, benefits, or license or certificate. But there's a problem, members. While the state no longer recognizes the conviction, there remains a separate record of the guilty plea. The record of that guilty plea to a minor, nonviolent drug offense is enough for an immigrant to this country, whether they are documented or not, to be deported under federal law. This is despite the clear intention that these programs are supposed to be available to people so they are not subject to draconian punishment for minor drug crimes. We are punishing people for their successful participation in these drug treatment programs, and we are punishing them unequally. How are they being punished? They are being separated from families permanently, and they are being permanently barred from ever obtaining U.S. citizenship. All because they have pleaded guilty to a minor drug possession charge in order to participate in a treatment program that we offer to them. This is an injustice that is doubled through the inequity of not only effectively denying the program to non-citizens. This bill will simply allow for a technical plea withdrawal under certain conditions. Those conditions are that the plea was entered on or after January 1st, 1997, that DEJ was successfully completed, and that the entry of judgment may result in deportation, among other consequences. This expungement is nothing new to California. California already allows for expungement in certain cases. This bill will not create an entirely new time-consuming process. In fact, the effect of allowing this is so minimal that one bill has been deemed to have no fiscal impact whatsoever. This bill offers a simple to the needless deportation of people who have put in the effort to rehabilitate themselves, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, I will assume, Assemblymember Eggman, that is your close. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 27. Measure passes. Let's move to file item 61, AB 828. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 828 by Assemblymember Lowe and others, and act relating to vehicles.
Assemblymember Lowe, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm honored to present Assembly Bill 828, a bill that updates an 80-year-old statute clarifying that a personal vehicle used in the transportation of a passenger by a transportation network company is not a commercial vehicle. Currently, TNCs are defined as an organization operating in California that provides prearranged transportation services for compensation using an online-enabled application or platform to connect passengers with drivers using a personal vehicle. The vehicles are used by TNC drivers are the same vehicles that are used for errands, such as driving kids to school or going to the grocery store. And according to the PUC, many of TNC drivers are part-time or occasional drivers, working an average of 22 hours per month. And with the convenience of TNCs, many more people are starting to use these opportunities, which cuts down on traffic and emissions from cars. I'm happy to also mention that this bill passed with bipartisan support out of Transportation Committee 14-0, and delighted to co-author this, joint author this with Assemblymember Ling Chang.
Assemblymember Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you may know, earlier this year, the Department of Motor Vehicles distributed a memo applying legal language from 1935 to modern ride-sharing services that only recently came into existence. The memo required ride-sharing drivers to register as commercial vehicles. In response, I sent a letter to the director of the DMV urging the department to reconsider this decision. 80 years ago, this interpretation was likely sound. However, in 2015, this simply makes no sense. It would subject thousands of current and potential rideshare operators to more red tape and higher business operating costs. For now, the DMV has retracted their policy on applying commercial licenses to ride-sharing drivers, but the issue is still under review and needs guidance from the legislature, which is why this legislation is so important. As these innovative platforms become part of our daily lives, it is important for the state's policies to adjust to the progressive marketplace and attempt to be as creative as the industry it regulates. Members, as a joint author of AB 828, I respectfully urge your support.
Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to ask the second co-author a question, please.
Without objection.
Ms. Chang, is this your first presentation on the floor for a bill?
My own bill. I am a joint author with Assemblymember Lowe.
Which raises even more concern for me that a freshman member of the Republican caucus wouldn't even bring her own first bill to the floor for her first presentation.
Wait, So if I may
I didn't
respond
ask a
to the
question,
member.
Mr. Speaker, I have the floor.
Mr. Jones has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So if the freshman Republican member is going to share co-authorship on her first presentation, does she also always have to share rides with the primary author as well?
More than happy to, but I will definitely not be sharing any rides with the member who just spoke.
Mr. Speaker, I would respectfully request that this bill be sent back to committee for further review, and that Ms. Chang might want to consider some amendments to remove her name and bring her own first bill to the floor.
Mr. Jones, you can't make a motion after you've already spoken, so unfortunately that motion is out of order.
Oh, thank you. I guess duly noted. Then I would ask for an aye vote.
And I will just close with the fact that I've had a couple of bills go on consent already and pass through the Assembly. Just FYI, member to my right.
Seeing and hearing no further debate or hazing, Assemblymember Lowe, you may close.
Hello. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 67, noes 1. The measure passes. File item 67 will pass and retain. File item 68, AB 487. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 487 by Assemblymember Gonzalez, an act relating to parole.
Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker and members. In 2008, the voters of California passed Marsy's Law, amending the state constitution to protect and expand the rights of victims of crime. Some of these rights include notifications of court proceedings, including all post-conviction release decisions. However, current law only requires the Board of Parole to notify the victims or next of kin who request these notifications, omitting the district attorneys in the process. This is problematic because DAs sometimes serve as the only voice of crime victims. AB 487 will simply add a notification requirement to the district attorneys when an inmate requests to advance a parole hearing. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 75, no 0. The measure passes. File items 69 through 74 we will pass and retain. File item 75, AB 30. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 30 by Assemblymember Alejo, an act relating to schools.
Mr. Alejo, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to present AB 30, the California Racial Mascot Act, which will phase out the use of the derogatory racial slur Redskins as the school team name, mascot, or nickname in all California public schools. This historic measure is part of a national movement to get rid of the use of the Redskins name, which started almost 50 years ago in 1968 by the Congress of American Indians. Many universities and school districts in California have already taken the lead and have voluntarily moved away from using the offensive Native American mascots in their schools. For far too long, we have allowed stereotypes and derogatory terms to become normalized to our younger generations. Allowing hurtful stereotypes to be promoted and normalized is damaging to Native American heritage. And let me remind you that the R word was once used to describe Native American scalps sold for bounty at a time when our state condoned the killing of Native peoples. Such terms have no business being used as a mascot in our public schools or otherwise. And last year, the legislature approved with bipartisan support my ACR 168 to urge the Washington NFL team to also change its mascot. This year, AB 30 has received strong bipartisan support in both the Assembly Education Committee and the Assembly Arts and Entertainment Committee. And this bill is also trying to complete the work that was started over 10 years ago by former Assembly member Jackie Goldberg. Last year, members, while I was attending Native American Day at the Capitol, just outside these halls, I met this amazing young 16-year-old young man named Dakota Brown, who is a member of the Wilton Miwok Indian Nation. He was gathering signatures to phase out the use of Native American mascots, and I promised him then that we would work together this year to make that a reality. and he has come to every committee to provide compelling testimony of why California should be the first state in the nation to phase out the use of this racial slur, Redskins, in our California public schools. I ask you to join me in this historic vote. All my relations, Mitako Yeo Yasin. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Speaker, members, I just want to give you the personal reasons why you should support AB 30. As many of you know, my wife's family is Navajo, and after your great-great-grandparents and earlier generations were exterminated and died of disease by a rate of 80 to 95% from tribe to tribe, after your great-grandparents were forced onto the most marginal land left in the continental United States, and after your grandparents were forced into schools that beat them for speaking their own language or practicing their culture, it's humiliating to then have to send your kids to schools that use caricatures and epithets left over from these brutal times. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Assemblymember Alejo, you may close.
Members, lastly, I just want to add that California is a state with the largest population of Native Americans, and every September we honor Native American Month. But the way we truly honor Native peoples in California and throughout the country is to stand on moral principle and to do what is right to end the use of this insulting racial slur against them. While malice may not be intended through the use of the R word, it's nonetheless harmful to Native American children. Every time a student plays a team with a derogatory name, the student is exposed to racial slurs and epithets which characterize their people in a negative light. This goes against equal rights and opportunity for all that all students deserve in our schools. Schools will adapt just like many high schools and universities like Stanford have already done. And in retrospect, we'll look back and see what we did was right here today. I hope that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will join me in standing up for civil rights of our Native American communities. I ask for your support.
This time, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 57, noes 9. The measure passes. Next item, file item 76. We will pass and retain. File item 77, AB 216. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 216 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia, an act relating to product sales to minors.
Assemblymember Cristina Garcia, you may open.
Mr. Speaker, members, AB 216 would make it illegal for stores to sell non-nicotine vaping electronic cigarette devices to anyone under the age of 18. Current law only prevents minors from purchasing vaping electronic cigarettes devices with nicotine cartridges. Even though these devices come without nicotine, they are still filtration devices that can be used for smoking cannabis, nicotine, or other herbal substances. E-cigarettes and vape pens often target a younger audience using sweet-flavored compounds that carry the names of popular kids' treats. Although they don't have nicotine, these compounds have been shown to contain other harmful chemicals masked by the candy-flavored vapor. Minors under the age of 18 are now free to purchase and use these products. In fact, the number of children using e-cigarettes or vape pens has doubled every year since 2009. AB 216 is an important first step to protect our children who have become prey to vendors with strategically named non-nicotine vapes with fun flavors like Kool-Aid and Skittles. Unlike candy cigarettes that became socially unacceptable, these products are accessible to our children and act as a gateway to future tobacco use. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, I will assume that is the Assemblymember Garcia's close. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 75, no 0. The measure passes. File item 78 through 83 will pass and retain. File item 84, AB 745. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 745 by Assemblymember Chow, an act relating to mental health.
Assemblymember Chow, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 745 would promote greater coordination of supportive housing with mental health services by adding a member to the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission who has practical experience providing supportive housing to persons with severe mental illness. The Commission oversees the implementation of the Mental Health Services Act and may advise the Governor or the Legislature on mental health policies. Supportive housing has proven to be an effective strategy for reducing homelessness among people with mental illness. At any given moment, more than 133,000 Californians are homeless. Of these Californians, roughly 33,000 or 25% are considered chronically homeless. According to researchers, at least one-third of chronically homeless people are mentally ill. Adding a member with supportive housing experience to the Commission would further encourage the proven method of using supportive housing as a tool to reduce homelessness. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, members, I rise in support of AB 745. This is a common sense measure as one who hails from a region with a significant homelessness problem, and much of which is related to mental illness. We know it's quite important to make sure we have affordable and supportive housing. Just to end veterans homelessness in LA County alone this year will require the county band together with the city and house 650 veterans a month. We think that Proposition 63 Oversight Commission can help us with that number, and we thank the author for a good bill. I urge affirmative support of AB 745. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Mr. Chow, you may close.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his remarks. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 76, no 0. The measure passes. File items 85 through 88 will be passed and retained. File item 89, AB 1059. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1059 by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, an act relating to environmental justice.
Mr. Eduardo Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, members, AB 1059 is a bill that will improve public health for the communities along the California-Mexico border region by expanding the CalEnviro screen to capture relevant environmental data in said region. The California Air Resources Board has done a good job in incorporating many types of environmental data in its CalEnviro 2.0 screen. However, the Air Board Resources acknowledges that there are gaps in the U.S.-Mexico border environmental data. That is why I'm bringing forward AB 1059. This bill has passed both committees unanimously with no votes, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 71, noes 0. Measure passes. File item 90, AB 1089. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1089 by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, an act relating to the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy.
Again, Mr. Eduardo Garcia.
Mr. Speaker and members, this bill is a district bill that would expand the Coachella Mountain Conservancy Governing Board to include the cities of Indio and the city of Coachella. This bill has also received unanimous support with no votes. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 74, no 0. The measure passes. Next item, file item 91, AB 1308. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1308 by Assemblymember Perea, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Perea, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 1308 would provide a technical fix that would strengthen the state's apprenticeship system by establishing basic but necessary procedures for the approval of new building and construction trades apprenticeship programs. Specifically, the bill would require a pattern of unfilled requests by contractors to be established before approval of new apprenticeship programs. It would also provide technical fixes to remove the special circumstances provision in the labor code that is no longer needed because the bill further defines when programs are deficient. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, I will assume from Mr. Perea that as his closed, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 51, noes 21. The measure passes. File item 92, AB 1343 will pass and retain. File item 93, AB 1506. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1506 by the Committee on Labor and Employment, an act relating to employment.
From the Labor and Employment Committee, Mr. Hernandez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, this committee bill is technical and makes a cleanup change to correct an oversight by adding a cross-reference to another Labor Code section. This bill would simply correct the oversight by amending Labor Code Section 203.1 to reference Labor Code Section 201.9. This bill has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 24. The measure passes. Going to file item 94, AB 204, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 204 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, an act relating to redevelopment.
Assemblymember O'Donnell, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I am pleased to present AB 204, which is a district bill and authorizes successor agencies to former redevelopment agencies in Los Angeles County to keep their existing oversight boards. As part of the 2011 Redevelopment Dissolution Act, oversight boards to individual successor agencies were established to supervise the dissolution of RDA projects. Current law requires all individual oversight boards in a county to consolidate into a single countywide oversight board by July 1st, 2016. In Los Angeles County, this would effectively funnel the workload of 71 successor agencies into a single entity. AB 204 allows individual oversight boards in Los Angeles County to continue to independently operate in order to prevent both gridlock and cost increases in the RDA dissolution process. The bill is supported by the County of Los Angeles, the City of Long Beach, City of Los Angeles, and several other Los Angeles County cities. The bill is passed unanimously out of 2 policy committees, and there is no known opposition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Mr. O'Donnell, I will assume that is your close. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 75, noes 0. The measure passes. Let's now go to file items 95 through 97, which we'll pass and retain. File item 98, H.R. 16, we've already dispensed with. File items 99 and 100, we will pass and retain. Moving now to the consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read the second-day consent calendar.
Assembly Bill 1471 by Assemblymember Perea, an act relating to business.
The clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 77, no 0. The consent calendar is adopted.
Assembly Bill 1538.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 208.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1015.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1151.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 499.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 549.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1241.
Ayes 77, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1049.
Ayes 77, no 0.
And Assembly Concurrent Resolution 54.
Ayes 77, no 0. At this time, we'll move to our announcements and adjournments in memory. We don't have any adjournments in memory today. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Moving now to announcements. The schedule session is as follows. May the 5th check-in session, May the 6th check-in session, May the 7th floor session at 9 a.m. Colleagues, I want to remind folks we do have committee meetings this afternoon, 1:30, Revenue and Taxation, 3 o'clock, Banking and Finance, and I do have one final announcement. We do have a colleague who is celebrating the youthing process today. I want to congratulate our Transportation Chair, Jim Frazier. Happy birthday. And with that, all other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Garcia moves and Ms. Waldron seconds that this House stand adjourned until Thursday, May the 7th at 9 a.m. Quorum call is now lifted.